Questions. There's a reason why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Maybe He wanted us to listen twice as much as we speak. But you know what's funny? Most of us do the opposite. We speak twice. Questions. Listen half and regret always. So pause, smile today. I want to talk about something we all struggle with, something so simple. Questions. Yet so powerful, the art of silence. Oh, they say. Words can inspire, but silence can transform. So let's explore. When should we stay silent? Questions. When does silence speak louder than words? Have you ever sent a message in anger and later wished you could unsend it? Oh yes, those WhatsApp apologies after a heated argument, sorry. Questions. I didn't mean it, but the truth is, you did mean it. In that moment, when we're angry, we're like pressure cookers, full of steam. If we open our mouth, then we burn people. Questions. Silence at that moment isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Next time you're furious, do this. Take a walk, drink some water, say a prayer. Then speak. Because when anger cools, questions, clarity begins. You see, words are like arrows. Once released, they don't come back. Sometimes silence is not avoidance, it's protection. A young boy once told his teacher, questions. I only said the truth. The teacher smiled and said, yes, but you said it like a knife, not like a flower. Speaking truth is good, but truth without kindness is cruelty. Questions. If your words don't help heal or uplift, be silent. Oh, this one's for the WhatsApp University graduates. So laughs. We love to give opinions about politics, relationships, questions, even other people's lives without knowing the full story. A wise person once said, never form opinions based on half the story. Questions, or you'll end up judging the wrong person. Before you speak, ask, do I know everything? If not, let silence be your response. Questions, because silence doesn't make you ignorant. It makes you intelligent. Or one of the greatest gifts you can give someone is your silence. Not because you have nothing to say, questions, but because you're willing to listen. When someone is in pain, they don't need your advice, they need your attention. When your child, friend, questions, or partner speaks, don't just wait for your turn to reply. Listen, truly listen. Silence in listening builds connection. You may forget what you said, questions, but they'll never forget how hurt they felt. Bond. Sometimes in life, the best answer is no answer. You don't have to explain yourself to everyone. Questions. You don't have to prove your worth in every argument, because time has a funny way of revealing the truth. When people doubt you, stay silent. When they misjudge you, stay consistent. Questions, your actions will speak, your peace will protect you. Silence isn't emptiness, it's full of answers. It's not weakness, it's strength under control. You see, questions, sound is powerful, but silence is divine. Questions, the most beautiful music in life is played not by instruments, but by hearts that understand the rhythm of silence. Or when you're angry, so you don't hurt. Questions. When words can wound, so you protect. When stories are incomplete, so you stay wise. When someone speaks, so you connect. Questions. And when time must answer, so you find peace. In the noise of this world, may your silence become your superpower. Remember, silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. Questions. It means something beautiful is growing inside you. Seek you. Questions. In today's world, where everyone wants to have the last word, silence is often misunderstood. People think if you don't react immediately, you've lost. If you stay quiet, you're weak. Questions. If you don't argue, you're scared. But that's not true. Silence is not weakness. It's strength in disguise. It's the power of restraint, the mastery of emotion. Questions. And the art of staying calm when chaos surrounds you. Let me tell you something interesting. The loudest person in the room is not always the strongest. Sometimes questions. It's the calmest one sitting quietly, observing, smiling, and choosing peace over pride. That's true power. Think about it. When a dog barks at a lion, does the lion bark back? No questions. The lion walks away because the lion knows its worth. It doesn't need to prove itself with noise. That's what silence is, the behavior of a lion-hearted person. It says, questions. I don't need to react to everything. I know who I am. Let's take an example from daily life. Imagine you're driving on a busy road. Suddenly, someone cuts in front of you recklessly. Questions. Your blood boils, right? You want to honk, shout, maybe even roll down your window and say something harsh. But if you do, what happens next? You'll carry that anger with you for hours. Questions. Your peace is gone. The other person may not even care. They've moved on, but you're still burning inside. Now imagine instead you take a deep breath, stay silent, and let it go. Questions. You protect your peace, that strength, choosing silence over reaction. We all face moments where people try to provoke us. At home, at work, online. Someone says something unfair. Questions. Someone criticizes, someone mocks. And instantly the mind screams, answer back, show them. But real maturity is not in proving a point, it's in protecting your peace. Questions. Silence doesn't mean you agree with them. It means you refuse to let their negativity control your energy. Let me tell you a small story. A monk once went to a village where people didn't like him. Questions. They shouted at him, insulted him, and threw harsh words. But he remained calm and didn't respond. Later, someone asked him, questions. How did you stay silent when they insulted you so much? The monk smiled and said, if someone offers you a gift and you don't accept it, who does the gift belong to? The man said, questions. To the one who offered it. The monk said, exactly. Their anger, their words, I didn't accept them, so they still belong to them. That's the wisdom of silence. Questions. It's not about suppressing your voice. It's about mastering your response. It's choosing not to pick up every emotional gift someone throws your way. Questions. Because when you react to every insult, you become a puppet in someone else's hands. But when you stay silent, you remain in control. There's a story in every office, in every home. Questions. Where one person learns the power of silence. A colleague spreads gossip about you. You find out, and your first instinct is to confront, to fight. But what if instead, questions, you stayed quiet, continuing your work with integrity? Over time, your results, your conduct, your calmness will speak louder than any explanation. Silence in that moment, questions, is not passivity. It's patience, and patience is strength. We often confuse silence with submission. But silence doesn't mean you accept wrong. Questions. It means you are wise enough to choose the right time to speak. Because timing matters. Speaking when emotions are high often leads to regret. Speaking after reflection leads to respect. Questions. Think about the great leaders and spiritual teachers. They don't shout, they speak less. But when they do, every word has weight. That's because silence refines the mind. Questions. When you spend time in silence, your thoughts become clearer, your emotions settle, and your words gain power. The more you practice silence, the more your words begin to matter. In our daily life, questions, there are countless opportunities to practice this strength. When someone criticizes you unjustly, be silent. When someone argues just to win, not to understand, be silent. Questions. When you're tempted to gossip, be silent. When you're about to say something you'll regret later, be silent. Every moment you hold your tongue, you save your peace. And peace, my friend, questions, is priceless. There's a famous quote, silence is the sleep that nourishes wisdom. When you stay silent, you give space for wisdom to grow inside you. Questions. You begin to understand situations differently. Instead of reacting emotionally, you respond mindfully. Instead of judging others, you start reflecting on yourself. Even in relationships, questions, silence can heal. Sometimes your partner doesn't need an explanation, they need space. Sometimes your friend doesn't need your advice, they need your presence. Questions. Silence is not absence, it's presence in its purest form. When you stay quiet but fully attentive, people feel safe around you. They trust your calmness. That's the quiet charisma of strength. Questions. Remember, a calm mind is a powerful mind. A quiet person is not weak. They are simply not dependent on chaos to prove their strength. The loudest voice doesn't win, the most centered one does. So, questions. The next time you feel like reacting, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, will speaking now make things better or worse? If it will hurt, confuse, or escalate, be silent. Questions. That silence will protect your energy, your peace, and your dignity. And one day, people will realize your silence was never emptiness. It was full of wisdom, confidence, and class. Questions. That's what true strength looks like, smiling in chaos, walking away with peace, and knowing not every battle is worth your voice. Silence, my friends, is not the absence of power. Questions. It is the power of presence. It is saying, I am in control of my words, my emotions, and my peace. That's real strength. Questions. Words are powerful. They can build someone or break someone. They can heal like medicine or wound like a knife. And the strange thing is, it takes just a few seconds to say something. But sometimes, questions, it takes years to heal from what was said. That's why it is said, be careful with your words. Once they're spoken, they can be forgiven. Questions, but never forgotten. There are moments in our daily lives when emotions run high. Anger, jealousy, frustration, disappointment. And in those moments, our tongue becomes faster than our mind. Questions. We speak without thinking, and later we sit with guilt, wishing we could rewind time. Silence in such moments isn't a weakness, it's wisdom. It's not about suppressing your feelings, questions. It's about protecting your relationships and your peace. Think about a small situation we've all faced. You come home after a tiring day. Your mood isn't great, questions. And someone at home, maybe your spouse, your child, or a parent, says something small, maybe a question or a comment. Because you're already irritated, you snap at them. Questions. You say something sharp. The moment passes, but the pain stays. Later, you realize they didn't deserve that tone, that harsh word. And even if you say sorry, a part of them might still feel hurt. Questions. That's the cost of careless words. Now imagine if, instead of reacting, you paused, you took a deep breath, you stayed silent for a moment, walked away, and then spoke later. Calmly, kindly. Questions. That silence would have saved the peace in your home. It would have kept love safe. That's the power of staying silent when your words can hurt someone. Sometimes, questions. Silence is not the absence of expression, it's the presence of compassion. It's saying, questions. I care more about this person than about proving myself right. When you hold your words back out of love, that's not weakness. That's emotional intelligence. Questions. Let's take another example. Imagine a workplace situation. A colleague makes a mistake. You see it and you're angry because their error created more work for you. You want to scold them. Questions. Maybe humiliate them in front of others. But what happens when you do? You might feel powerful for a few seconds, but you've just created fear and distance. That person won't respect you. Questions. They'll resent you. But if you choose silence for a moment, calm down, and later speak privately, not to hurt, but to help, your words become constructive. Questions. That's how you build people instead of breaking them. Many times people say, but I was only telling the truth. And yes, truth is important. But truth without kindness is cruelty. Questions. Just because something is true doesn't mean it must be said harshly. The way we say things matters more than what we say. A kind truth can heal. A cruel truth can destroy. Questions. There's a small story about a teacher and a student. One day, the student spoke rudely to his classmate and later justified it by saying, "But I told him the truth." The teacher smiled and said, "Questions. If you serve food to someone, would you serve it on a dirty plate?" The boy said, "Of course not." The teacher said, "Then don't serve truth on the plate of anger or ego." Questions. No matter how good the food is, if the plate is dirty, nobody will eat it. But that's what happens when we use harsh words. Our truth, our opinion, questions, our intention, all get lost because our tone hurts more than our message helps. In relationships, we often forget this. In arguments, we want to win, not understand. Questions. We say things we don't mean just to prove we're right. But the damage done by one sentence spoken in anger can take months or years to repair. Silence in those moments can save love, friendship, questions, and respect. I once heard a story of a couple who had been married for 30 years. Someone asked the husband, "What's the secret of your peaceful marriage?" He smiled and said, "Questions. Simple, when she's angry, I stay silent. And when I'm angry, she stays silent." Or, silence, he said, was the secret ingredient of their harmony. You see, questions. Silence doesn't mean you stop communicating. It means you start communicating wisely. Sometimes your silence tells the other person, questions. I care about you more than this argument. And that is the kind of communication that heals hearts. There's another side to this. Sometimes our words don't hurt others, but ourselves. Questions. Every time we gossip, criticize, or complain, we fill our mind with negativity. Silence protects us from that too. You may not realize it. Questions. But every harsh word you speak out of irritation plants a seed of unrest inside you. Staying silent in such moments not only protects others, it also preserves your inner peace. Questions. There's a beautiful saying, before you speak, let your words pass through 3 gates. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? If your words don't pass all 3 gates, questions, let them stay behind the gate of silence. In our everyday lives, in our homes, at work, with friends, even online, we are surrounded by opportunities to speak. Questions. But not every opportunity needs to be taken. The art of knowing when not to speak is what separates the wise from the ordinary. When we choose silence over sarcasm, kindness over criticism, questions, understanding over argument, we rise above our emotions and reflect true maturity. So, the next time you feel that your words might hurt someone, pause. Don't rush to reply. Take a deep breath. Questions. Ask yourself, will this word heal or harm? Will this sentence build or break? And if your heart whispers, it might hurt, then stay silent. Questions. Because silence spoken with wisdom is far louder than any word spoken in anger. Remember, silence doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care deeply enough not to wound. Questions. It means you're strong enough to control your tongue, even when your emotions scream to let go. It means you've mastered the art of speaking from love, not from ego. So, questions. Be silent when your words can hurt someone. Because sometimes the most loving thing you can say is nothing at all. Questions. We live in a time where opinions travel faster than facts. A rumor can go around the world before truth even gets a chance to tie its shoelaces. Everyone wants to speak, everyone wants to comment. Questions. Everyone wants to be right. But wisdom teaches us something very different. Before you speak, before you judge, before you react, be sure you know the whole story. And if you don't, questions, be silent. Silence in such moments is not ignorance. It is intelligence. It is not weakness. It is wisdom. Because when we speak without knowing everything, we risk misunderstanding people, questions, misjudging situations, and misrepresenting truth. And once words are spoken, they cannot be taken back. Let me give you a simple example from daily life. Imagine you see 2 colleagues arguing at work. Questions. You walk past, hear only one sentence, and instantly take sides. He's wrong, she's right, or the other way around. Later you find out you only heard part of the story. Questions. And the person you thought was wrong was actually trying to help. Now you feel embarrassed, maybe even guilty. That's what happens when we speak or act without knowing the full picture. Questions. Our quick judgments can hurt others and make us look foolish. There's a beautiful story that illustrates this. Once upon a time, a wise king had two servants. One day, questions. One servant came running to him and said, "Your Majesty, the other servant spoke badly about you." The king didn't react. He simply said, "Thank you." The next day, questions. He called both servants together and said, "I heard something yesterday, but before I make any decision, I want to hear both sides." When the second servant explained what had actually happened, questions. The king realized the first one had twisted the story. The king smiled and said, "This is why I always listen before I judge." That's what makes a person wise. Not how quickly they speak, questions, but how patiently they listen. How often in life do we become judges without hearing both sides? A friend tells us something about another friend, and we instantly form an opinion. Questions. A social media post goes viral, and we share it without checking its truth. We listen to gossip, react emotionally, and later realize the story was half true or completely false. Questions. And the damage is already done. Relationships get strained, trust gets broken, and reputations get hurt. All because we couldn't stay silent for a moment longer to understand the full story. Questions. There's a saying, never form opinions based on half the story, because you might end up hating the hero and loving the villain. Life has a funny way of hiding truth behind perspectives. Questions. What looks wrong from one angle may look completely different from another. That's why silence is powerful. It gives you time to see things clearly, to ask questions, and to understand instead of assuming. Think about it in your own home. Maybe one day your child comes home upset and says, "Dad, the teacher shouted at me for no reason." As a parent, questions, you might instantly feel angry. How dare she shout at my child? But what if you took a moment of silence, called the teacher, and listened to her side? Questions. You might learn that your child wasn't doing homework for a week. That silence before reaction would save you from embarrassment and teach your child a valuable lesson about honesty. Questions. Or maybe at work your boss criticizes you for something you believe wasn't your fault. Your first instinct is to argue, to defend, to speak. But if you choose silence, questions, you give yourself space to think, to listen, and to respond calmly later. You might discover that there was a misunderstanding, or that your boss had incomplete information. Questions. Silence in that moment keeps your professionalism intact and your dignity safe. Silence is not just about not speaking, it's about listening deeply. It's about pausing before reacting. Questions. When you stay silent, you give truth the time to reveal itself. You allow facts to surface, emotions to settle, and understanding to grow. In that silence, you move from reacting to responding. Questions. Social media today has made this more important than ever. People post half-truths, screenshots without context, opinions without facts. And we are quick to comment, quick to judge. Questions. But being wise means resisting that temptation. It means pausing and asking, do I really know the full story? And if not, staying silent until you do. Questions. That silence is not boring, it's beautiful. It protects you from spreading negativity and saves others from unnecessary pain. There's a famous story about an ancient philosopher named Socrates. Questions. One day, a man came running to him and said, "Socrates, do you know what your friend just said about you?" Socrates smiled and replied, "Before you tell me, let's apply the triple filter test." Questions. First, is it true? Second, is it good? Third, is it useful? The man thought for a moment and said, "No, it's not true, not good, and not useful." Socrates smiled again and said, questions. Then why should I hear it? That's the wisdom of silence. You don't need to hear or speak everything. In daily life, we can all practice this. When someone gossips, stay silent. Questions. When someone tells you only part of the story, stay silent. When you feel tempted to judge a person by one moment, one mistake, one rumor, stay silent. Let time show you the truth. Questions. Because silence gives clarity and clarity prevents regret. One of the greatest strengths of a peaceful person is the ability to wait, to not react instantly. Silence buys you that time. Questions. It turns confusion into understanding. It transforms judgment into compassion. When you stay silent until you know the full story, questions, you not only protect others from your assumptions, you also protect yourself from unnecessary negativity. So, questions. The next time you're about to speak about someone or something you don't completely understand, pause. Stay silent. Questions. Because once truth comes out, and it always does, you'll be grateful that you chose silence over speculation. Remember, your silence today can save someone's dignity tomorrow. Questions. It can save a friendship, a relationship, a career, or even your own peace of mind. Let silence become your shield against misunderstanding. Because sometimes, questions, the most intelligent voice in the room is the one that stays quiet until the whole story is told. Questions. In a world where everyone wants to speak, very few people truly listen. Everyone wants to be heard, but few are willing to hear. And that, my friend, is where the real art of connection is lost. Questions. Silence is not just about keeping your mouth closed, it's about opening your heart. Being silent when it's time to listen is one of the greatest gifts you can give to another person. Questions. It shows respect, empathy, and love in the purest form. Most people listen not to understand, but to reply. While the other person is speaking, we're already preparing what we'll say next. Questions. We intercorrect, we offer advice, but we rarely pause to truly understand what the other person is feeling. Listening requires silence, patience, and humility. When you stay silent, questions, you're telling the other person, your words matter. You matter. Imagine this in your daily life. Your friend comes to you upset about something. They start sharing how hurt they are. Questions, how difficult things have been. But before they finish, you jump in with, I know exactly how you feel. Or you should just move on. They stop talking and you feel like you helped. Questions. But in truth, you didn't. They weren't looking for a solution. They were looking for a safe space. If only you had stayed silent and listened, they would have felt lighter, calmer, understood. Questions. Silence would have done more than advice ever could. Listening silently is an act of compassion. It tells the other person, you don't have to pretend. You can be yourself here. Sometimes, questions. When people are hurting, they don't want your wisdom. They want your warmth. They don't want you to fix their problem. They want to feel heard. That kind of silence is healing. Questions. It's like giving someone a soft place to rest their heavy heart. Let's take a simple example from family life. A child comes home from school, looking sad. The parent immediately asks questions. What happened? Did you fail your exam? The child hesitates and says, no, I just had a fight with my best friend. The parent, trying to help, starts lecturing. See, questions. I told you to stay away from such friends. The child goes quiet, not because their problem is solved, but because they feel unheard. Now imagine if the parent stayed silent for a moment. Questions. Put a hand on the child's shoulder and simply said, tell me what happened. That silence would have opened the door to understanding. Sometimes silence says, questions. I'm here for you, louder than words ever could. The same applies in relationships. How many arguments turn into wars simply because both people want to talk and no one wants to listen? Questions. One person says, you never understand me. The other interrupts, Of course I do, but you. And it goes on. But if one of them chooses silence, not out of defeat questions, but out of love, the entire tone changes. When one heart listens quietly, the other heart begins to heal. That's how relationships grow stronger. Not through perfect words, questions, but through patient silence. Silence when listening also teaches you something beautiful. Empathy. When you stop speaking, you start seeing. You notice the sadness behind a smile. Questions. The fear behind anger, the loneliness behind harsh words. You begin to understand that every person is fighting a battle you can't see. That awareness makes you softer, kinder, and more human. Questions. I remember hearing a story of a young man who went to visit an old monk. The young man spoke endlessly about his problems, his ambitions, his worries, his plans. Questions. The monk kept pouring him tea as he talked. Eventually the tea started overflowing, but the monk didn't stop. The young man shouted, "Stop, the cup is full." The monk smiled and said, "Questions. Exactly. Your mind is like this cup. It's too full of your own words. How can I pour wisdom into it?" The young man understood. Sometimes you must stay silent to receive. Questions. That's the beauty of silence when listening. It doesn't just help others, it helps you. You learn more when you listen than when you speak. Every person you meet knows something you don't. Questions. Every story you hear teaches you something new. But if you're always talking, you'll never learn. Silence allows wisdom to flow in. In our fast world, questions, where conversations are often replaced by notifications, people crave listeners more than talkers. Questions, think about it. How many times have you felt good just because someone truly listened to you without interrupting, without judging? It feels rare, doesn't it? Questions. That's why when you become that person, someone who listens silently and sincerely, people feel safe with you. They open up, they trust you, because your silence tells them. Questions. You're not alone. Listening silently doesn't mean you agree with everything the other person says. It means you respect their right to express. Questions. You don't have to fix every problem or respond to every word. Sometimes the best response is quiet presence. A nod, a smile, a comforting silence that says, "Questions. I understand." Even in spiritual growth, silence plays a powerful role. When you sit quietly listening, not to others, but to yourself, you begin to hear your inner voice. The mind, questions, which is usually full of noise, starts to settle. And in that silence, answers begin to appear. That's why wise people speak less, because they've learned to listen more. Questions, both to others and to life itself. So be silent when it's time to listen. The world doesn't need more voices, it needs more ears. Every time you listen without interrupting questions, you're giving someone the gift of feeling valued. Every time you hold back your words and open your heart, you're creating space for healing and understanding. Questions. The next time someone comes to you to talk, whether it's a friend, a child, a spouse, or even a stranger, don't rush to respond. Just listen. Let your silence tell them. Questions. You're safe here. You can speak. I'm not here to judge or advise. I'm here to understand. Because sometimes, questions, being silent when it's time to listen is not just a skill. It's love in its purest, most powerful form. Questions. There are moments in life when you are misunderstood, judged, or falsely blamed, and your heart burns with the desire to explain yourself, to prove that you're right, to defend your name. Questions. But sometimes the wisest thing you can do is to say nothing. Because there are situations where words can't fix what only time can reveal. When time itself is preparing your answer. Questions. Your silence becomes your greatest strength. It's natural for us to want to be understood. When someone questions your intentions, it hurts deeply. When people doubt you, gossip about you, questions, or misinterpret your silence, your first instinct is to react, to say, "Let me tell you the truth." But here's a beautiful truth. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. Questions. Silence is not surrender, it's trust. Trust that time will do what your words cannot. Think about this. When a seed is planted in the soil, it disappears. For weeks, there's no sign of life. Questions. People might even think it's dead. But deep inside, the seed is working, growing roots, preparing for the right moment to rise. When the time comes, it breaks through the ground. Questions. And everyone sees the beauty that was hidden beneath. That's how life works. Sometimes you have to go silent like that seed, knowing that in the right time. Questions. Truth will sprout and silence will bloom into understanding. In daily life, we often face moments that test our patience and self-control. Questions. Imagine you're working hard at your job, putting in extra hours, staying committed, doing your best. But others around you get credit or promotions you deserve. You feel invisible. Questions. Your heart says, speak up, show them how unfair it is. But your wisdom whispers, wait, time sees everything. And sooner or later, time does reveal the truth. Questions. Those who play politics may shine for a while, but consistency and integrity always win in the long run. Your silence in those moments protects your dignity and builds your character. Questions. Let's take another example. Relationships. Sometimes someone you love misunderstands you, they believe a rumor, or they think you've done something wrong, even when you haven't. Questions. You try to explain, but they don't want to listen. You could keep arguing, shouting, crying, but it only makes things worse. In such moments, silence becomes more powerful than any explanation. Questions. When emotions cool and truth unfolds, people often realize who was right, not because of what you said, but because of how you stayed. Calm, kind, and silent. Silence is not emptiness, it's faith. Questions. It's trusting that the truth doesn't need your defense. It will stand tall on its own. When you keep your peace in moments of misunderstanding, you're saying, questions. I don't need to prove my worth, I know my value. That quiet confidence is stronger than any speech. There's a story about a wise teacher who was once accused of something he didn't do. Questions. People gossiped and the rumor spread like wildfire. His students were angry. They said, Master, say something, defend yourself. The teacher smiled gently and said, why should I? Questions. The truth will not change because people don't see it right now. The sun doesn't shout to prove it's shining. Time will clear the clouds. And sure enough, a few months later, questions. The truth came out and everyone realized the teacher's innocence. His silence spoke louder than words ever could. This happens in our own lives too. Sometimes people will talk behind your back. Questions. Twist your words, question your motives. You can't stop them all. If you try to fight every rumor, you'll lose your peace. But if you stay silent, keep walking. Questions. And keep doing what's right, time will silence them for you. Your actions will speak louder than any explanation. Because time, my friend, is the best storyteller, even in failure. Questions. Silence plays its role when life doesn't go your way, when your efforts don't give results, and everyone around you says, see, you failed. Stay silent. Questions. You don't need to convince anyone that you'll rise again. Just keep working quietly. Let your success make the noise when the time comes. Questions. Every successful person you admire today had moments when people doubted them. But they didn't waste their energy explaining. They let time prove their worth. Remember, questions. Silence is not doing nothing. It's doing something meaningful without shouting about it. It's praying, preparing, working, and waiting. It's believing that truth has its own timing. Questions. When you argue with people who are not ready to understand, you drain your peace. But when you trust time, you gain strength. In relationships, in career, questions, in life, there will always be moments when you'll be tested by misunderstanding. Some people will walk away. Some will talk behind you. Some will judge you without knowing your heart. Questions. Don't chase them with explanations. Stay silent, stay kind, stay consistent. Questions. Because when truth finally rises, and it always does, those same people remember your silence more than their own words. Silence in such moments is also a teacher. It teaches you patience, questions, humility, and detachment. It makes you realize that not everyone deserves your energy, not every situation needs your defense, and not every noise needs your response. Questions. It teaches you that peace is more valuable than being right in someone else's eyes. Think about water. When it's still, it reflects everything perfectly. But when it's disturbed, questions, you can't see anything clearly. Silence keeps your inner water still, so you can see the truth clearly and act wisely. When you react with anger or arguments, you lose that clarity. Questions. But when you stay silent, your peace remains untouched, and time eventually clears the picture. So, the next time you find yourself in a situation where you're misunderstood, blamed, questions, or judged unfairly, don't rush to explain. Don't let your emotions dictate your reaction. Take a deep breath, stay calm, and trust that time will reveal what words cannot. Questions. Because the truth has its own way of shining, just like the sun breaking through the clouds. And when it does, people will see not only the truth, but also your grace, your strength, questions, and your silence that spoke louder than any defense ever could. Remember this, silence doesn't mean you've lost. It means you're wise enough to wait for the right time. Questions. Let your peace be your reply. Let your patience be your proof. And let time, the most honest judge of all, give your answer.